In Fairfield County, something new comes across my desk every day. Crimes are committed, cases are solved, and a community is made safe by the hardworking employees of the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office.
Welcome to This Week with Sheriff Dave Phelan, a weekly program on LancasterOhio.tv. We're also carried by a number of radio affiliates here in Lancaster. Do appreciate you, the listeners and viewers that join us each and every week. The show is actually taped at Fairfield Christian Academy. I appreciate the students here. And we got a great program. We got Sgt Jared Collins, our Detective Bureau Commander. Kind of a last-minute call here to him because our guest we had scheduled couldn't make it. But good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
And lots of stuff going on.
Oh, absolutely, always.
Now, before airtime, we were talking a little bit about something that's been in the news is the violence, the school shootings that we've seen over the last few months. And since you've been involved in the SWAT team, for how long now?
I've been off and on SWAT for about 22 years.
22 years. So let's just talk a little bit about school security and some things that have changed over the years as far as our response to an active shooter incident.
Well, absolutely. Our big change in law enforcement came after Columbine. Unfortunately, the active killer, active shooter thing really wasn't realized until Columbine. There was a standard law enforcement response, which was to contain, communicate, and then act. After Columbine, it was realized that we can't do that anymore. We have to go in and engage the killer as soon as absolutely possible. And that's, undergone several different changes since.
Yeah, and for years up to Columbine, that was what they say, you secure the outer perimeter, right? Make contact, try to make contact with the shooter, the same way you might handle a hostage situation in a bank or something.
Exactly. And we, I can remember being as part of SWAT and the department pre-Columbine, seeing, the full kind of array of responses from there since. And, I understand pre-Columbine, we didn't have these types of incidents. I think in the 70s we had a couple with the Austin Tower shooting. That was University of Texas,
Right.
and things like that. But we didn't have the focused type thing to our nation's schools like we have had since Columbine.
Yeah.
So, a few of the iterations that, kind of have gone after Columbine, it was you have 4 officers, you go in, you engage the shooter.
You actually wait till you all arrive at the scene, then go
Right.
in, right?
Right. And, since then, it was realized that, every second we wait, more people are dying. So, today's standard nationwide is single officer response.
So you can't wait, they've got to go in as soon as they get there.
Right.
And, right.
And we tell our guys, it's the worst of the worst situation, but you are the only person that can get in there and stop the killing.
And these things happen in less than, 3 to 5 minutes?
3 to 5 minutes is the number. That's generally, it is all over in 3 to 5.
Now, one of the things that the Sheriff's Office has been involved in, and I know Lancaster and a number of agencies throughout Central Ohio, is some drills, some practices. And you've been involved in that. Tell us, what are some things as school administrators, as students, as law enforcement we need to do when we have these drills?
Generally, not only has law enforcement response changed over the years to these types of events, but so has the recommended practices of schools, of fire EMS, of generally everyone involved in this. And without getting into way too much detail, it was initially lockdown, shelter in place, hide. And, you know, that's just not the smartest course of action anymore. It's really not. It's try to get out of the area. If you can safely or even questionably unsafely get out of the area, you're still going to stand a lot better chance of staying alive.
So instead of maybe barricading the door in a room, go out the window.
Right.
Get out of there.
You know,
Get away.
If you hear the noise, if you hear the shooting at the other side of the building or down the hall, get out. Just get out. A moving target is a lot harder target to hit. If you can barricade in place and not just shelter under a desk, we're talking if you can make that door impenetrable so that bad guy cannot get in, you do that. And in the absolute last case scenario, you fight back.
Right.
You have to. If not, you just become another statistic.
One thing interesting is not very long ago, I was involved as an observer at Lancaster High School. And I've done that over a number of years. And one of the school resource officers shared with me when they first started that a number of years ago that about 20% of the parents would not send the kids to participate. They didn't want them involved. They thought it was too traumatic. Now, today, with the police shootings over the years, there was not one call that they didn't want their child to participate. So they wanted their children to participate. The other thing that I noticed that's been the change that I've seen is now the students take it serious. I mean, even though it's a drill, I mean, there's nobody smiling, there's nobody joking around, there's nobody fooling around during these events, because I think it really, although it's very remote, I think the chances of a school shooting is like getting on an airplane. It's just a very remote situation, but it can happen and it does happen. So we have to be prepared.
We always talk and laugh, but the fire service does it right. They've been doing fire drills for 100 years. They essentially haven't lost a student in a school fire in 100 years. We've got to get better at this stuff.
Right, and so I think it's just valuable information. And what role does the parents play in this? As far as a lot of times when if God forbid an event like this happens, sometimes the parents actually try to show up at the school, don't they? So really, they're better just kind of stay away until it's taken care of.
The best advice I can give to parents is follow the directions that we're giving. Showing up at the school is only going to make a hard job harder for all of us. You've got to trust the Fairfield County Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement in the area to take care of the situation.
Now, then the other part of this, and you know this also so well because as the Detective Bureau Commander, we've also, and this has kind of subsided over the last few weeks, but initially after the incident in Florida, we saw an increase as far as threats to schools, where students, by and large, there was social media posts, there was a lot of different things that went on.
Right. It was a busy couple weeks after Parkland, unfortunately, in dealing and responding to these type of threats. With the advent of social media, it's been a game changer on all these types of things. Things that were never a problem are now an immense problem, and that is that the social media threats, the social media investigations. That's where most of these type of things are coming from.
So typically, what happens when there is some kind of a threat to a school? Whether it's something on the chalkboard, whether it's social media, whether it's a telephone call, what is the protocol for law enforcement in schools that you can share?
Well, generally, we'll come in and try to assign credibility or not to whatever threat it is. Generally, we also look historically that there's never been a school bombed where a threat was made ahead of time.
And I was just going to mention that I know during your careers, 25 plus, and mine longer than that I can honestly say that in being involved in hundreds of these, there's never been one that's been good.
Right, and
my career.
logic would dictate that if someone wants to damage a school and do as much damage as possible, why would they issue a threat ahead of time?
Right, right.
So the threats themselves are investigated. We do assign credibility or not to them. And then we just try to advise the schools on, the best course of action to take. Sometimes they follow our advice, sometimes they don't. So, that is pretty much at the end of the day up to them.
And one thing for sure is we've got to always keep in mind that we always have to treat these as it may be the real thing, and that may be bringing a dog in, evacuating the school, and those kind of things. And I guess before we go off the air, you may want to share, we had like a false alarm at Pickerington a number of weeks ago. That tell us a little bit about that.
That's one of those things that school officials and our school resource officer, Deputy Bennington, were investigating a noxious odor coming from a locker. Well, of course, they opened the locker, and just to Deputy Bennington's credit, followed his experience and training, it didn't look right. And it, when they sent me pictures of it, and I'm like, yeah, you guys probably better call the bomb squad.
I mean, what, there's some wires?
Yeah, some wires,
batteries?
some battery packs, and it looked like the wires were rolling into a mason jar full of some type of an unknown solid. That, all my bomb training tells me, yeah, that looks like it could be a device.
Yes.
So, the best thing is to call the pros, get them in, check it out. Turned out being some spoiled food and some locker decorations.
To keep like Valentine's or Christmas lights
Right.
on the locker.
Yeah, so we followed our protocols, did everything right, and it turned out well. So that's
And I guess the other
that's
thing,
where we're
it was a good drill.
Yes, sir.
And I think, and to everyone's credit, someone, it's something like see something, say something, notice something unusual, investigate it. Didn't look good at first. In fact, it sounded like if there was ever going to be something credible, that might have been the one,
Right.
based on what we knew initially. And the student really didn't do anything other than leave old food in the locker and that stuff. But it was we kind of, you guys took care of it.
Yeah, it was definitely an experience, and it's one of those things that you definitely can't take lightly.
No, you can't. We're just about out of time. So I'd like to have you back next week, talk about things going on, some of the trends we're seeing in crime, and spring's here, summer's on the way, and some of the challenges that will bring.
Sir.
Sgt Jared Collins, our Detective Bureau Commander, talking about SWAT, a host of different things this week. Do appreciate him taking time out of his schedule, and appreciate you folks listening and viewing today that see the program. We're carried on, again, LancasterOhio.tv and our number of radio affiliates. Again, thanking the students at Fairfield Christian Academy, where this program is taped. Until next week, same time, same place. If you're driving, buckle up and God bless.